So, football, or some of you know it as soccer. Football, the world sport, the beautiful game, that thing that you simply can't seem to get away from. Like every time I go into the office and someone says, "Did you catch the game last night?" And I'm like, yeah, because I'm clearly not doing anything else with my evenings. No, Frank, for the 15th time I did not watch the game. You don't need to keep asking me that. Coming from the beautiful lands of England, I've seen my fair share of kicking a leather ball into an outdoor shed net. And as I always say, I'm not the biggest football fan, but you simply can't deny it. The audience and the cheers, it gets you going. So yeah, this game's pretty popular, but we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the many times through history where the game almost got banned, or in many cases, straight up did get banned. And it's an interesting tale, nonetheless. And at the end of the video, you'll realise that it's actually a goddamn miracle that we have this game in the first place, because, oh my god, why can't we just have nice things? Yeah, there was a number of times where we almost royally fucked up. Speaking of royals, when I'm talking about the royal family back in England, you see them everywhere, and a lot of the time at big football events like the World Cup, the Euros, even going to Wrexham every now and again. But there was once a time where the royal family wanted the game banning. Yes, for the amount of good it does for them for publicity, these days, there was once a time where that simply wasn't the case. Medieval England, where football was more akin to a chaotic free-for-all of beating the living hell out of each other instead of the structured sports that we have today. The earliest known attempt to ban football came in 1314, when Edward II, well and truly at the end of his royal tether due to the fact of the unruly mobs of people kicking balls around in central London, decreed that there is a great noise in the city caused by hustling over large balls. Large balls, ladies and gentlemen. But no, he meant footballs, not the gonads of the locals. Apparently, the locals' enthusiasm and love for the game was disrupting commerce and the general peace. A very subjective statement, but there we are. The game's the game. So, what was the solution to this royal pain in the arse? Ban the game. Yeah, just straight up ban football. Because why not? But as it turns out, these medieval ruffians weren't too keen on following royal decrees about their beloved game. The ban was largely ignored and people carried on kicking their large balls around to their heart's content. In Edward-like fashion, fast forward in a time machine to the year 1349, where Edward III issued yet another ban. This time it was for a little bit of a different reason, however. Maybe he realised that the first time they tried to ban it, there wasn't a good enough reason to. Some would say rather subjective. So this time he had something more precise. The reason that Edward III wanted this banning was specifically due to the fact that it was taking away from the essential skill of archery. And that sounds crazy today because we simply don't have enough people that love archery as much as football, but this wasn't for recreation. Yes, the king's concern was that football was distracting his subjects from practicing archery, a skill that was vital for national defence. Maybe if they incorporated kicking balls as a weapon, it might have kept the game around a little bit longer than it had done at that point. Or if they decided to incorporate archery into football, I would absolutely love to see the striker get shot down when going into the penalty box. Ah yes, penalties would be much different. Watching Harry Kane get shot on the ankle and falling to the floor, maybe an actual injury to his ankle might do us a lot more good. And given the fact that we have football today, you know for a fact that this ban didn't really get very far. As we move into the Tudor period, the game faced yet another royal opponent. Henry VIII, known more for his 6 wives and crippling gangrenous legs more than his football policies, Henry also tried to curb the game. He decreed that football led to great evils and also many other harms. Again, rather vague and subjective, but these royals really had it out for the game. Whilst it wasn't entirely clear on the reasoning why this was the case, it was likely due to the rough and tumble nature of football at the time. Not quite as the football we see today, something a little bit more roughhousery. I don't know if this was post or pre-jousting accidents, but either way, it does make you wonder that King Henry VIII, he probably wasn't all there. So, by the 1600s, the whole idea that football was having a major impact on archery, people didn't really give a shit about it anymore, and football came back, to everybody's delight. Well, Most people anyway. But like I said, football wasn't exactly the sport we know today, and it just basically descended into one massive riot, because why not? By the 19th century, however, football was starting to go through a period of puberty, coming into the modern game that we know today. Yes, football had transitioned from a rural pastime to organised sport, particularly in schools and universities. The riots and chaotic fighting had largely moved away from the pitch and into the stands, where the drunken fans decided to throw fists. That has not changed even today, but at least it's more so out of the game itself. However, this era also brought about its own challenges. This included the Industrial Revolution, which led to urbanisation, and the newly formed police forces that often found themselves at odds with these rowdy, fisticuffed football fans that just didn't know when to quit. It was during this period that football faced a pivotal moment, as in 1863, the Football Association, otherwise known as the FA, was formed. This effectively standardised the rules of football and well and truly distinguished it away from that filthy degenerate sport that we know as rugby. I may have just got a few dislikes for that, but it's nothing personal. So yes, the entire purpose of this was to make football a distinguished and reputable game. Even though we have scenes like this. Yeah, I call bullshit on that one. And despite the many attempts to thwart football over the years, it was undeniable. Football was here to stay. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this saw the rise of many professional football clubs, leagues and competitions. The establishment of the Football League in 1888 marked the beginning of football as a professional sport. All was not well, however. You might think that all is well in the world, but that couldn't be further from the truth, because it really wasn't. World War I and the anticipated straight-to-DVD sequel posed many challenges to the world as a whole, and that included the professional world of football. With many players being enlisted and competitions being suspended, not even wars could halt the game. Makeshift matches were happening in trenches and in POW camps. So, even if you couldn't legally play the game, no one's going to stop you having a good kick around every now and again. However, all was not lost, as women who were working the jobs that men would normally be doing during wartime would start picking up the game. And whilst at the time this was pretty much universally approved, and you might expect that in the annals of history the hammer would come down on this faster than you can say Gesundheit, but no. At the time, it was pretty universally accepted, and people liked the game. People wanted football. Regardless of who was playing it, they had matches they could go see. And people loved it. And straight from this, professional teams for women would form, with leagues and fixtures being implemented and many games being taken up to raise money for good causes. This all sounds pretty brilliant. I mean, especially in a time of such dire straits. You know what? The game could stay alive in whatever way we can. But like any avocado I buy from the supermarket, things would go to shit pretty quickly. At the end of the First World War, many of these women were sent away from the factories now that the men would come back to the jobs, which resulted in many of these women being scattered back across the country. And, well, these teams kind of fell into disarray. Whilst this well and truly sucks because it was obviously popular, it wouldn't be the end. Because, I mean, these days, women's football is probably more popular than it's ever been, and it's only on the rise. So, whilst they've still got a bit of catching up to do, it's good to know that, even back in the day, there was support for it. Post-World War II, football exploded in popularity, both domestically and internationally. And this was the creation of FIFA and the World Cup, transforming it into the global sport we know today. And with the advent of television, this brought it to everybody, domestically and globally. No wonder it's called the world's game, the beautiful sport. This is football. And like I said, it ain't going anywhere. I mean, money alone is keeping this thing afloat, so anything else is just a bonus at this point. So yeah, banning large gonads to archery. There's a whole host of reasons why football was potentially banned. I'm sure there's been many other instances of things like this happening, but this was specifically on the build-up to the football we know today. And like I said, I'm not the biggest football fan, but there is no denying that if you're cheering for your team or your country, regardless of what it's for, there's something special in that. So you might have realised that this video was probably meant to come out a few weeks before, but delays and all, and algorithm, so there we are. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe. I forgot to write something at the end of the script here, so balls.